Hi, everyone. Welcome to Classic Advice. I have a surprise for you guys. I have my dear buddy, Dave Campbell, who I am so honored that he's taken time out of his day to join us. So he is from, well, you tell. Tell
Hi,
everybody.
Scarlett, it's you. It's great. I love it. We met through podcasting. I am the host of 8 different podcasts, all under the banner of True Media Solutions.ca because we're both Canadians. Yay.
Yay.
And I do podcasting, and we found each other through my show, and I'm so happy to have your podcast and to be here with you. This is great.
Yeah. So today I thought that we would talk a little bit about parenting, being a parent. I'm the mother of 3 boys. They're 13, 11, and 7. And you, what ages are your kids?
Oh, gosh, you make me do math. 27 is my oldest son. My daughter is 24-ish. And my youngest son, who is a dad himself, is 21, 22.
Nice.
Yeah. So, yeah, in all their 20s,
Yeah.
all out of the house. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. My house, I mentioned in one of my podcasts about like having your house like clean and stuff. And I was like, yeah, if you're a parent of little kids, just
No.
bring that standard way down.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I have found kind of a little tricky, is disciplining the kids. Because how I discipline Levi, who's my 11-year-old, and how I discipline Riley, who's my 7-year-old, to Noah, who's the oldest, and he lives with his dad. So, and he's much, much different just because he's not living in the same house as us. So going back and forth between houses and co-parenting puts another, wrench in your buck and how to navigate that.
Yeah.
And I've learned like from raising the 3 different boys is I can't treat them all the same. Because if I treated Levi, who is just, he's just such a sweetheart and very soft-hearted. Right. So if I raise my voice at him, he's in tears and just beside himself. And like, I can't do that. I have to just sit down, talk with him, and then it's fine. Everything's golden again. Whereas Riley, who is like little clone of my husband now, Roy, and watching them go at it, and they're both very stubborn, and I mean I'm stubborn too, so the poor kid didn't stand a chance. And it's like you can't treat them the same. Is that did you find that too?
Yeah, each of my kids are completely different. You're like, they have, like, in our home, you'd think they'd be all the same because they're all raised under the same roof, and it's just my wife Jen and I, and so we think they'd just be a carbon copy of each other, but they're not.
Yeah.
Like my daughter, when she was young, if there was something she was doing that was not good, a simple look, you didn't have to say a word, and she'd be like, oh, she would just stop, right? Like, oh, I did the thing.
Yeah.
And they see it in my parents' face, and I'm like, oh, she would just stop. And my other 2, they were completely oblivious. You could have their head in your hands speaking into their face, and they still didn't get it. So, hey, that's just how it works. They're all different.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And they're so unique and so special, each and every one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and their personalities, the way that they are so uniquely different is so beautiful.
Yeah. And once you crack that code, then you can start parenting better, I think. Because if you try to treat them all the same, it's not going to land, right? Discipline doesn't land, rewards don't land, how they want to be spoken to, what lights them up, all those things are different. And you just can't. It goes back to there's that book about the 5 love languages, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Some people respond to touch, and some people respond to acts of service. Same with your kids. They all respond in different ways. So if you can read that book and apply it even to your children, It's kind of interesting. You'll start to see characteristics of them.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm a big fan of that book. I read it back, poof, like 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so true. And like I'm definitely physical touch.
Yeah.
And what are they? So there's physical touch, there's acts of service, there's gifts, there's like the words when you're affirming
Yeah.
and speaking
Affirmation. Yeah.
kindly, and there's another one that I can't remember,
Everyone
but yeah.
listening is screaming right now.
Yeah, I know.
You
Like,
forgot this one.
yeah.
My favorite. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. But yeah, like, and you can kind of be dominant in one. I mean, everybody likes all of them, but
Yeah.
typically the way that you show love is the way that you tend to like to receive it. Was when
True.
when I was told, like, if you're trying to
Yeah.
figure out which you are. And yeah, they're all very, very different. And like going back to what you said about rewards. So I'm not a professional dog trainer, but we have a pack of dogs. We don't just have one or two. We have a pack. And one of the things that when I was learning how to train dogs and all of that fun stuff is when you discipline a dog, after you hand out that discipline, you need to show them love times that by 10. So whatever you discipline them in, now you got to show them like all this affection and love, because if you don't if it's all discipline and it's all no 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 no, then that's all they're hearing.
Yeah.
And then of course that's one of the first words that toddlers learn, mine included,
Right.
is no, because they
Yeah.
hear it a lot.
Yeah.
No, don't do that. Don't touch the stove. When I lived over in Romania, to heat our houses, they have something called a soba. So it's like these bricks that are laid out in a certain design, and you light a fire in the bottom, and then the smoke will curl up through the stones, heat the stones up, and then the stones stay hot for like all night, for hours and hours. And there's no barrier around them. So my oldest son, because he was one when we came to Canada, was learning how to crawl and walk and move around the house on his own. And we had to teach him, no, don't touch that. You'll burn yourself, because it's just as
Yeah.
hot as a stove or an oven can be
Yeah.
at times when the fire's really hot. So it's that balancing act of, so when, because I had dogs first before I had kids, I took what I learned from my dog training days and put it into my kids, so that when I do have to have those hard conversations with, say, Levi, because typically that's all he needs is a good conversation,
Yeah.
then I pour a lot of extra time into him specifically after that, so that he does feel that love and not just, oh, mom's
Yeah.
disappointed in me, mom's mad,
Yeah.
or dad, or whatever, right?
Yeah. And yeah, we parent our kids differently, right? As far as in age. Like, so
Yeah.
how we parented our first, we were never parents before. You can
Right.
buy a book, you can listen to a podcast about parenting, but until you have your own children, you still don't know what you're doing. And at every stage of their life, you're learning how to parent differently. From a toddler to a teenager,
Yeah.
you're going to parent differently, and you have to learn how to do that as you're doing it. It's
Yeah.
like jumping out of an airplane and sewing your parachute while you're plummeting toward the earth. You're kind of
Yeah.
building your own parachute, right? While you're parachuting.
Yeah.
So as parents, you're building your parenting skills as you parent. So
Yeah.
you're gonna mess up. You're gonna do things wrong. You're gonna be too heavy in discipline, and then too light in discipline,
Yeah.
and then the next child comes along, and you take the lessons you've learned and try to adapt it to how different they are. Because we had boy, girl, boy. Our daughter was way different than our oldest son as the middle child. And so you parent different for her. And then when you have the third, your second becomes a middle child, and that's different than the other two. And the youngest is different than the oldest, and on and on and on. So you're learning how to do everything in the moment, and you're going to mess up. You're not going to be good. You're going to have a lot of really bad, crappy days as a parent, but letting your kids see you do that in real time, make the mistakes, fess up, show them how you're getting better, right? It's going to happen. So they're going to learn just from you demonstrating your ability to learn on the job is really what that is.
Exactly.
Helps them to get that kind of coping skills because they're going to model what they saw mom and dad do as you learned how to parent. They're going to say, well, learning as you do it is still a good option. I don't have to be perfect to start. I just have to be learning.
Yeah.
Happens in podcasting. You don't have to be perfect
100%.
to start, right?
Yeah.
You just get started. You learn as you go, and your community follows you.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for being a parent. Same thing.
Yeah. And I really want that everybody that's listening right now to really hear what he just said, because that was gold. That you're going to mess up, and it's okay.
Yeah.
And you're going to have those days that you're like, I don't even know what I'm doing. And, I dished out too harsh a punishment, and now I feel terrible. And it's hard. Like, that's something I struggle with is I feel awful whenever I discipline my kids. It's not a pleasant thing to do. Like it's hard. And yeah, when you said that you kind of maybe you went too harsh and then you go too light. And I was actually just going through that myself about a month ago, where I had to sit down with my 2 kids that live with me, and I was like, I think I've been a little bit too light. Like, you guys got to start respecting the rules, because that's what kids do. They push the boundaries.
Yeah.
And
right.
it's completely normal, and that's what people do. I mean, some adults do it too, right? They like to see how fast they can speed before they get pulled over.
Right. Yeah, we do it all the time. It's a 15-minute break at work. I'm going to take 17 minutes. Who's going to care? Well, you're pushing it. We're always doing that. It's human nature. So again, letting your kids see that you're human, that's always a good thing. The one thing I learned early as a dad with my kids was we don't have a lot of money. We don't have a lot of stuff. And everything we have, we really worked hard for. We did the extra shifts. We did whatever we could to raise the money to get the thing, right? So we bought a used van. Okay, well, nothing spectacular. It's a van, but with 5 of us, a car wasn't an option for trips. So we needed something bigger. So we bought the van, and we're proud of it. It's used. It's old. It's already got lots of miles and kilometers on it, but we were happy with it that we had something that was ours. And then we were teaching our daughter how to drive at the time, and she backed right into a pole and put this huge, massive dent in the back of the van. That's like, you cannot ignore that. That's not going to buff out. That's huge. Like, you could put a small person in the dent. That's how big it is, right?
Yeah.
And in the moment when I pull in the driveway and see this massive dent in our relatively new used van, I'm like, not happy, because that represented a lot of work to get that vehicle, and I wanted it to last for a while.
Yeah.
And now every time I come to the back of the van, I see the dent. And in that moment, as a dad, I'm thinking, my first reaction is, who the heck destroyed the van that we just got? Like, how dare you? Now I'm getting angry, right? Because I want to protect this thing and make it last for years so that we can get our money's worth out of it. But in that moment, I'm like, what's more important in this moment? The person or the thing? Right? Because if I say in that moment that this thing is more important than the person, in that I've put all my attention on how dare you break something, instead of it's okay, we'll work through it and let's try better.
Yeah.
As people to be more careful.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't want my daughter to feel like the van was more important than she was. And that's hard. That was so hard, because I want to lash out and go at her. But who wins in that situation?
Yeah.
Right? It's a van. It's a van. It's not something that's going to last forever. And since then, it's been retired and we don't have it anymore. So if all she remembers is the time I smacked up Dad's van and he got angry at me, and now there's a wedge between us, how is that helping our relationship? It's just a van. get over it, right?
Yeah.
So that was a lesson I had to learn as an early dad was things aren't more important than your kids.
Yeah. And that
And
is
it's hard.
that's so hard because even just thinking back to my single mom days, and that was when my kids were 1 and 3 till about 3 and 5. No, we're 3 and 5 when I met my husband now. So they were little. So I learned a lot about, and the single parents that are listening can attest to this. You really learn, you kind of have to take on both roles. And I was terrified because I didn't know financially how I was going to do it.
Yeah.
And take care of everybody. And then when something gets broken like that, it's the anger is more like my mom used to always say anger is when you lose control.
Mm.
And whenever I get angry, I try to remember her in my little ear. What did you lose control of? Well, I lost control of the fact that now my van's broken. Now I have to either scrap it and get a new one, or is it worth it to fix it?
Yeah.
And then thinking it that way, it kind of brings me back down to the rational and thinking about it rationally as opposed to feeding the emotion.
Yeah.
And that's helped me huge. But yeah, it's hard. It's so hard to do that in the moment because you're just, when you're angry like that, it's just like horse blinders. You can't really see the whole situation. Which yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do that.
Yeah, and then your kids are looking at you like that feeling of like, I guess back in the day, a long time ago, you'd hear, wait till your father gets home or wait till your mom gets home.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you are going to get it. And you wait for that car to pull in the driveway and you're like dreading your parent coming through the door.
Yeah.
Because you know you screwed up and you're going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that is, like that.
Yeah.
Just the fear. It could be just be them angry at you and nothing happens. But just knowing that you disappointed your parents and now you're going to have a confrontation and your back's up as a kid, that feeling I'd never wanted that feeling for my family. But I know that there was times where I could have been better as a dad, really, because in the moment you're walking into the house and you don't know what happened. You're just getting the little bits and pieces. And then why the heck is there a dent in the van? Like, somebody explain what happened.
Yeah.
But everyone else is prepared for the conversation.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm walking in going, what happened? What's going on? So.
Yeah. And that the kids watching you thing that you mentioned, like they watch you like a hawk.
Yeah.
And then they mimic you. And that's why I love this podcast so much, is because it's making me think about all of these things, and it's making me more self-aware. And it's making me a better parent, which is great because I want to be a better parent,
Yeah.
And that waiting to discipline after your emotions calm down. Like sometimes I'll do that, and I feel sorry for the kids because I make them wait even longer. But when I'm upset like that, sometimes I'll say, I need to talk to your dad first.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk it out. And then we'll go together to the kid and say, hey, okay, this happened. Let's talk about it. Like Riley, for example, the other day, I feed the dogs in their kennels typically. And I asked him to go collect all the dishes, and he dumped all the food out. And I feed my dogs twice a day, but I free feed them, so I give them as much as they want. Unless they get fat, then I'll put them on diet. But he dumped it out, and then it makes her kennel greasy from the food. And then she gets greasy from the food, and she likes to sleep with him at night, so then his bed gets all, it's just gross. Yeah. So then I was like, Riley, like, why did you do that? And I felt myself getting frustrated. And as soon as he said, well, I didn't want Joe to be hungry when I was gone. Yeah. And I was like, and then I just melted. I was like, you have a heart of gold, Riley, but please don't do that. And understanding that why is huge, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the other things I've struggled with, I think, as a dad early on too, was I'm not responsible for my kids' success and failures. They are. I'm there to celebrate their success and help them through their failures. But if they succeed or fail, it's not on me.
That's huge.
It's really not on me. And that's hard because you want to be, especially when they're little, right? Mm-hmm. They learn how to ride a bike. You're in the moment, the success. They fall off their bike. Oh, let's go help, right? Like everything is wrapped around their success and failure. And you get your identity from that as a dad, as a mom. As your kids succeed, they get the goal, they win the game. Yay, we're all a team, right? Yeah. You're always part of that. But you have to separate yourself from that because your kids are going to make decisions that you do not agree with. Mm-hmm. You can see what's coming down the road. And you're setting yourself up for some really hard days. I'd love to stop you from going in that direction, but I'm not responsible for your success and failure. So keep that in mind.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's really big too, to understand that. And you're not a failure if they fail at something.
Perfect. Exactly. Yeah.
Right? You're here to, and I tell my kids this a lot. I say I'm here because like I give them these chores that they have to do. And they're easy chores, like take out the garbage. Riley is like, because he's only 7, he picks up the dog dishes. And occasionally he likes to help mop. So it's like when I broke my ankle, I got Levi, who's 11, to sweep. And I got Riley to mop. And Riley would do like, if the room was like, he would do like 10%. He would just go like, whoop, whoop, whoop. And I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to say anything because he's really just wanting to help and be there.
Yeah.
And it's that, you know, and then I would sit down and talk to them and be like, this is why I'm giving you the chores so that you learn how to do it. Because the first time you sweep and mop, it's not going to be perfect. He doesn't get every little corner or every little, you know, muddy paw print because it's springtime, you know, and I'm here to be your guide. I'm not here to hold your hand through your entire life. I'm here to just set you up so that when you're, you know, my husband moved out when he was on his own by the time he was 16.
Yeah.
And so I'm here to guide you as opposed to anything else really, I guess.
Yeah. Like for one of my kids, they really struggled with money and credit cards. And when they moved out of the house, we kind of tried to warn them like, hey, you know, credit cards are dangerous and you got to be careful of these things. And they went too far with it. And the freedom of being out of the house and having a credit card, and I'm just going to put it on my card. Yeah. And it came back to bite them. So if I never taught my kids about money, that is kind of on me if they don't do well in money. Okay. We never talked about it. I never taught you. And then you had a really bad time with money. That is kind of on me because I didn't prepare them, right? Mm-hmm. So we do have to step up as parents and do their best. But the fact that they have an outstanding balance on their credit card is not my fault.
Yeah.
They use the card incorrectly. They're going to have to pay for it. They're going to have to do the thing to rectify that. That's not on me. So I didn't fail in that moment. Yeah. I did everything I can. I gave them the warnings. I gave them the talk about credit and all that stuff and how to do it right. They chose to go a different direction. Mm-hmm. So I didn't fail. They failed. Yeah. I will be there to support them. I'll do whatever I can, but I'm not going to bail them out. You're going to have to live with the feeling of seeing debt pile up because you didn't listen and heed the advice of your parents. Yeah. So I didn't fail in that moment as a parent. They did.
Yeah.
And I need to be okay with the fact that I can't fix everything.
And that's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to just sit back and watch them, you know, because you can tell even because like Riley's learning how to ride a bike and it's like you can tell when he's doing like the little wobble, right? And I'm like, oh, you're on gravel. This is going to hurt. Like, yeah. But I like he has to, you know, you have to learn. I mean, obviously, if I'm close enough to him and he's falling, I'll catch him. But he has to learn to keep his eyes up and look ahead. And I can tell him that till I'm blue in the face. But until he actually learns to look up so that he doesn't, you know, go into the creek or something, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't, it's part of life failure. And we tend to learn maybe even better when we fail,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Now
And that's a big thing too from my kids too. When they were little, they would trip and fall when they're really small, and they'd look back at you like, "Did that hurt?"
Yeah.
Like, I want to make sure. Like, I've just face planted right now in the dirt, and I look back at you, and as a parent, if you jump up and go, "Oh," or run to them, then they're like, "Oh," they start crying, right? Right. But if you're like, "You're good," they're like, "Oh, all right, I'm fine."
Yeah.
So that carries through as parents, even to when your kids are adults. They're going to fall down. They're going to look back at you and go, and if you jump up and go, "Oh my gosh, oh no, are you okay?
Yeah.
You made mistakes with your credit card. Oh no, oh," they're like, "Oh no," and they start overreacting. But if they look back at you and you're like, "Hey, credit sucks, fix it,"
right?
and they're like, "Okay," they get up and they go on just like they were when they're little. They're just like, this is life. So mom and dad aren't going to parachute in and save me. They told me not to do this. I decided to do it anyway. So now I'm going to have to live with it and figure out how I'm going to pay this off.
Yeah.
I know my parents love and care for me.
Yeah.
But they love and care for me enough to make my own mistakes and not come in and save the day.
Yeah.
That's a good parent. That's a good parent from my perspective.
Yeah. Oh, I agree 100%. And
you can't ride the bike for them, right? Back to your story.
Yeah.
You can't ride the bike for your son. They have to ride their own bike. So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even going back to when they were really, really little and I was potty training, it's like, I don't know when you need to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, I remember telling my kids that, like, I don't know. Like, do you know when I need to go to the bathroom? And they looked at me and they're like, well, no. And I was like, well, then how am I supposed to know when you need to go? Like, I can tell you before we get in the car to go to the mountains and it's a 3-hour drive that, hey, maybe you should visit the bathroom before we get in the car, right? But if we're just hanging around outside, then I don't. It was like, oh, we have a funny story about it was my son's fourth birthday, and we were out back with a bunch of friends and stuff, and he really wanted marshmallows. And I was like, okay. And we're like, it's your birthday. And we always limited him to a certain amount or whatever because they're packed full of sugar and, you know. And we're like, you know what? It's your birthday. Have as many as you want. But if you have too many, you're going to get an upset stomach. Yeah. We're warning you right now. Yeah. Okay. And he ate a bunch. And then he was like, oh, and ran to the house. He learned his lesson. To this day, I do not have to monitor his candy intake.
Yeah.
Because he's just like, I'm only going to have one, maybe two. And then he's like, yep, no, I'm good. I don't want any more because I don't want to have another accident because he didn't make it to the house.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's that, you know, I warned you, but letting them fail in a safe environment where, I mean, you got an upset stomach, you didn't make it to the house. Well, that happens. Like, I guess. Yeah. Well,
now I want a marshmallow.
Right? Sorry.
Yeah. I love it.
We're actually in a fire ban here. It's really dry.
Yeah.
We want to have a fire so bad, but it's just too dry.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, and routine I found is really, really helped my kids a lot too. Like, for example, we always sweep and mop the house or the floors on Thursdays. So that it's nice and clean for the weekend in case somebody decides to pop by.
Yeah.
And so they know, like, I don't even have to tell them now because they know when it's Thursday. They come home from school. They go straight to their rooms. They pick everything up off the floor. I don't even have to say a word. And then they'll go to the living room and pick up all their toys. Yeah. And then I'll come and follow with the broom and the mop. And occasionally, they'll be like, well, can I mop? Well, can I sweep? Can I do it? Well, sure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to stop you.
Yeah.
And then I'll go around and move things out of their way or what have you to help them out. And we work as a team. So it's not just like, okay, here, you have all the chores, kids, and
Yeah.
I'm going to sit on the couch on my butt and not help you and not do anything.
Right. Not even lift my feet out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's one thing as parents we can do better, I think, is creating community. The fact that you're doing that with your kids together, everybody has a part in that. And it's not one person's job to do something. Everybody participates.
Yeah.
We could do better as having more community in our homes because eventually your kids are going to get older, spoiler alert, and they're going to be away or not even present in the home when they're there. They're going to be on their device. They're going to be doing something. They'll be busy with school, whatever, friends, partners in the future. All that's going to happen. And the one thing now as an empty nester looking back is I miss the community. I miss us all being under one roof. I don't have that, and I'll never have that again the way I had it when they were little.
Yeah.
Because now they're all with their partners and doing stuff, which is great. But having everybody under one roof, it's gone. That part of my life is over.
Yeah.
And that's a weird feeling as a dad, as a parent, to know that I'll never have that feeling again. So, yeah, that's rough. So enjoy that while you have it.
Yeah.
You get like 17 summers with your kids. That's it. 17. Yeah. Then they're off to do school or whatever. 17 is not a big number, Scarlett. That's not a big number. It's not 60. It's 17. So as an empty nester dad talking to you, just remember, those go 17 birthdays, 17 holidays, 17 summers, 17 first days of school, and then they're done. That's it.
Yeah. And then
bye-bye.
That's
it. So keep it in mind.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. And it does go by fast. Like it feels like yesterday that I gave birth to my first.
Yeah.
And now he's 13. And it's like, where did the time go? And those first, like, especially with Riley, we really had a hard time finding, and maybe it's the area that we're in because I'm in Tomahawk. So if you look it up, we have a gas station, a bar, a liquor store, a general store that is also a post office, and a restaurant. So you blink, literally, and you'll go right through it. So we're around that little hamlet. And I was working 30 minutes north in another small town. And there was lots of daycares and stuff in a bigger town, Drayton Valley, that's at like the opposite direction. But I could not find anyone that would be willing to babysit so that I could go to work. Or they wanted so much that it was like, well, I'm basically paying you to go to work and you're raising my kid. I might as well just be at home with my kid.
Yeah.
And those first years were tough and hard. And you're waiting for him to go into school, so at least you don't have to worry about that. But now looking back, it's like those days are over. They're gone, and I'm never going to get them back.
Right.
So enjoy those little, it might be tough like on a financial standpoint if you can't go to work because of that reason.
Yeah.
But then he'll be 6 and going into school and going on play dates every second weekend, and it's like, I never see you.
Yeah. When your kids are little, like little babies, you're like, oh, I wish you could grow up and talk. So at least I could communicate.
Yeah.
Right? So then you're hoping for you. I can't just hurry up and get to the point where we can talk.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, I wish hurry up and get to the point where you can walk. It'd be a lot easier because then I don't have to carry you everywhere.
Yeah.
We're always like, well, I can't wait till you get to this part and this part. And then you get to the part where you're like, hang on, I wish it was like the old days and you needed me more. And oh my gosh, you're growing up fast and all those things that you want to speed up the clock.
Yeah.
You get to a point where you're like, you want to backtrack and go, no, I want to go backwards now. And you can't.
Yeah.
So, as much as you want them to hurry up and be whatever, just remember, as you ask them to hurry up and whatever, that hurries up the clock. as well, and you don't have a lot of time on that clock with your kids, so
Yeah.
just balance it out a little bit.
That's
Balance it
something
out.
Levi was like, "Oh, I can't wait to drive. I can't wait to do this and that." And I was like, "Just enjoy
Yeah.
this time that you have now because you are going to be driving in 3 years. And 3 years is going to go it might seem really slow to you because I remember when I was like in grade 3 thinking I would never get to high school. That is so far away. Like time went so slow. And now I feel like you blink and my favorite season, summer, is over, and now it's winter again, and I'm like,
Yeah. What just happened? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
So yeah, it does. It goes by fast, and what you were saying about, oh, like hurry up and talk so I can communicate with you.
Yeah.
My husband's sitting right beside me, and I think he can attest to this. That there's times when he probably wishes that Riley was a little baby again and wasn't because they're like the same person.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like
Right.
he's fighting with himself and me like standing back and watching those two. It's like I'm looking at the same person. Like
Yeah.
the same
It's a
person.
little mini me. A little mini me. Yeah.
Yep.
I love it.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. And that the other thing that we recently just had a little chat with our kids about was I don't even remember what me and my husband were arguing, discussing something passionately, and we did it in front of our kids. And then after we were done and we resolved the issue, we pulled them aside and we're like, "So we know you guys overheard us." Like we didn't include them in the heated discussion. Well, we just did it with them in the other room.
Yeah.
And then we're like, this is why we did this, is so that you guys can see, like how you mentioned before, you guys can see how we resolve things. And that even though we might, because I'm half deaf, so Roy typically has to raise his voice when he speaks to me, so that they don't think that, oh, we're angry with each other and no, that's not it. But learning how and showing them how to resolve these things in front of them so that when they grow up, like you said, they can do that in their relationships. And I think that
Yeah.
is so. And then my son was like, "Oh, yeah. That makes a lot of sense now." Like it was maybe uncomfortable for him in the moment that, oh, mom and
Yeah.
dad are arguing,
Yeah.
but oh, they solved it now and everything's good. And you need to have those moments where they see you do that so that when they grow up they can go do that.
Yeah. Exactly. That your kids are watching you so much, and there's just like sponges, right?
Yeah.
Especially when they're little, they're trying to figure out life, and they're watching you and copying you and everything you do.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it's pretty amazing when you hear somebody say, "Oh, Scarlett, I just met your son. They sound just like you. They just sound like your husband." Like when they talk, I hear your voice. You're
Yeah.
like, "Wow." And that's your kid's parent just being a little parrot of you. They're just copying you. They pick up how you talk, and that's how they talk.
Mm-hmm.
Your mannerisms become their mannerisms. Your view of life becomes their view of life. They just adopt. I drank the coffee the same way my dad drank his coffee because that's how he drank. I never had it any other way because that's the way he drank his coffee. My dad always cut an apple with a knife, a little paring knife,
Yeah.
because he had false teeth. I didn't know that when I was a little child, but I only eat apples with a knife now.
Yeah.
And I have all my teeth. So, but it's just that's what I saw. So I just do that out of habit, and just that was modeled for me. Now that's my way of doing it. Now my kids do the same thing. They eat their apples with a knife. And they're
Yeah.
like, I don't even know where this came from. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's funny. I have a funny story about that. So my mom was making, I don't even remember. I think maybe it was cinnamon buns. So you make the roll and then you put this stuff on and then you roll it up and then she always cut the ends off and stuck it in a pan.
Yeah.
Oh, it wasn't cinnamon buns because you cut them this way. Anyways, there was some sort of dessert that you roll, cut the ends off, and put in a pan. And then my grandma was over and she watched my mom do this, her daughter, and she was like, why did you cut the ends off? And she's like, well, you always cut the ends off, so I was just doing it like you. Because, like, you have to understand, Grandma never had recipes. She always said a little bit of this, a little bit of that, throw it together, do this. Like,
Yeah.
there was no, like, wood stove, so
Yeah.
there wasn't temperatures or nothing. Like, it was just, she was like a whiz in the kitchen. And yeah, she's like, why are you cutting the ends off? Well, you did it. Well, here, it was because my grandma's pan wasn't long enough.
Small.
And
Right.
it was just exactly what you were saying. Them watching their parent do something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we had a real good laugh about that. We're like, oh, so we don't have to cut the ends off.
It's amazing. And that, that's kind of why I have my Dad Space podcast, because I wanted dads to hear these kind of stories and go, you're not alone. As parents, I think we feel like we're so alone. Especially if you're a single dad, a single mom. And that's another side. I'm like, my Dad Space podcast is for men. And I'm having so many women listening to the show. And I'm like, this is amazing that it's connecting. But I just think that we need more voices out there saying to the parents, you're doing your best.
Yeah.
Right. So don't be hard on yourself. Your kids love you. They're very resilient. Again, they fall down, they look at you, and if you don't overreact, they're fine. They'll get up and keep going.
Yeah.
So do your best, show up, love your kids, explain when you screw up, let them see the humanity in your home, build community. All of those things are the things I think we could do more of, and just demonstrating that for our kids. And then again, at the end of the day, if your kids make a mistake, they go down a path that you don't want them to go down. You told them not to, you gave them the reasons why, and they still went there. Their failures are not your failures. So don't get hard on yourself for that, because it's only going to get harder down the road. As your kids get older, they make bigger and more life-altering decisions. That's not yours to bear, right? You'll be there, love them, and support them, but you're not the result of your kids. So keep that in mind.
Yeah. I think that's a stellar, you wrapped up the whole episode so beautifully.
It's like we're podcasters or something, right?
Well, yeah, you've been doing it a lot longer than I have. Yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just want to tell everyone that listening to your show, thank you for supporting Scarlett and her journey as a podcaster.
Oh, thanks.
You listening to the show is probably the best thing you can ever do. You listening to the end of her show, to the very end, right now, where you're right here with us still. That's the best way to tell all the different apps that this podcast is great. So sticking to the end of every episode of Scarlett's podcast is the best way you can support the show right now. So please do that every time a new episode comes out. Listen to the end. Be there for Scarlett. Give her your feedback. Reach out to her. Podcasters, I can attest to this. Podcasters love hearing from their audience. And you might be thinking, yeah, but Scarlett's busy. She's probably doesn't have time for me. She probably doesn't. I don't even know if she wants to hear. Yes, she wants to hear from you. So reach out to her. She's always got her links and stuff. I just, as a podcaster, to hear from your listener is probably one of the best things ever. So do that for Scarlett, and do all the ratings and reviews. That's great too. But listening to the end of the podcast and reaching out and sharing your thoughts with her on her show and how she's doing is probably the best feedback ever. So on behalf of a listener of Scarlett's show to the other listeners of Scarlett's show, please do that and support Scarlett and her podcast.
Aw, thank you so much. And yes, I can definitely attest to that, because when I reached out to Dave, and I even said this in my little first blurb of an episode, I'm going to email them, we'll see. And look at now, like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And potentially we're going to see each other later in the fall. I'm looking forward to that if we can make that all work. But it'd be great to cross paths in person too.
So stoked. And what we're talking about is a podcaster conference thing down in Calgary. And I was talking to my husband, and he's like, yeah, no, go. And it's important to take that time as a parent, to take some time for yourself, have your own little ventures, and your kids will see that. And yeah. So thank you so much to everybody that listened. We're so honored that you took the time out of your day to spend with us. And we would both love to hear from you. I'm going to send a link to Dave's website in the show notes, so check that out. Go say hi. He would love to hear from you. Go check out his shows. If you're a dad, definitely go check out Dad Space. And if you're thinking about making a podcast, do what I did and start at episode 1, and by episode 60 I had my first episode. So
it's about 300 episodes to go, so you're doing good.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yeah.
Alrighty, you guys take care. Thank you so much for listening. If you have a podcast, please let us know so that we can support your show. And shoot me an email. I will put it in the show notes, but it's ClassicAdvicePodcast@gmail.com. Take care, everyone, and have an awesome day.
Awesome.